Hello and welcome. Today, the government, or if I say the state, marked its first Women's Summit. One would say, what is a Women's Summit about? Well, on the 8th of March is World Women's Day, and to commemorate this day, here in Ghana, the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection organized a Women's Summit, which was very, very well attended. We want to find out what informed it, and also how far women have come in our country today. Are we still in the dark ages, or do they have more privileges than men? Do they have a cause to fight for their rights? Should there be a Men's Day around the corner? Who knows? But I must say, I attended the forum and it was perfectly organized, it was well attended, and it was beautiful. But why? What informed it? Are women still oppressed? Don't they have equal share in education, media, judiciary, finances? Well, with me in the studio to discuss these issues from my extreme left is Mrs. Diana Adiko. Mrs. Diana Adiko, Technical Advisor for Ministry of Gender, Children and Protection. And then to my immediate left is Mrs. Mercy Jabing, who's also Communications Advisor in the same ministry to discuss women issues. Stay tuned. Equality for women, progress for all. Now, is that true? Well, that's why we're here. But then if you forget the traditions, this is Sanko Fayinchi. My name is Anana Sakwa, and this is PM Express. Well, welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
And I must say, you're looking absolutely smashing. My set is absolutely brighting and enticing, as we say.
That's the essence of the day, actually.
You see?
Yeah, we are glad we got it right.
Let's go. Then I saw the colors, yellow and blue. Was any significance apart from it being, coordinating and pretty?
We, as a ministry, we realized that we are gravitating towards the color yellow and blue, and we thought it would come out very expressive and colorful today. So, yes, that's why we chose yellow and blue. No extraordinary motives for the yellow and blue.
And it does look very well.
Thank you.
I came to the summit today, obviously, saw the crowds, yet still there was, not even enough chairs to hold people who came in there, which is a good sign. I mean, it's not a bad thing to see. I think it's worse to see empty seats. So I want to find out what informed it. But before we do, I'll just do a playback on some of the summit and then we'll discuss it. So stay tuned.
Heaven knows how we will get there. We know.
The goal is to celebrate contribution of women to Ghana's independence and development so far, to encourage today's women exert their role in nation building. Gender and Social Protection Minister Nana Oyelesa tasked women to unite in diversity to achieve a much-needed national restructure.
We are campaigning vigorously against gender-based violence. We recognize the role of parliaments who have passed laws to protect our interests, the role of the judiciary whose Supreme Court delivered a landmark judgment that has secured property rights of wives and women in marriage, the role of the media who have consistently highlighted our issues. And we also condemn gender-based violence and the unfortunate humiliation suffered by 3 women who are alleged to have stolen some items in Accra Mall last week.
Representing market women, Mercy Nijan said more market women are pursuing empowerment through formal education.
We'll be knocking on every door for access to education, access to advocacy, so that at least we'll know how to do our own bookkeeping, how to do our own accounting, because that is very essential to our businesses.
Speakers agreed. Although the judiciary tries to dispense justice in favor of women, legislation was the best solution.
It is only when the relevant laws are passed that the judiciary can continue playing its role of interpreting them. The courts have in the appropriate circumstances attempted to do justice, even where Parliament has not enacted appropriate legislation as required by the Constitution. It is a leadership's hope that this August summit will lead to strategies which will further promote the rights of the Ghanaian women.
Member of Parliament for Pusiga, Ladi Aye Ayamba, said those laws are being vigorously pursued by women in Parliament.
The Gender and the Judicial Committee have looked at one of the issues, the interstate succession bill, which we have all been striving for, has been reviewed, and we are forwarding it so that we would see how fast we will get it undertaken. We know what is happening. We know what is happening, and so we're not joking with that.
Prayer coordinator for National Women's Aglo, Gifty Afenyi-Dazi, gave biblical backing about the competence of women in leadership, asking government to do more to get women there.
Until government leads and process to establish pragmatic measures and strengthen the institutions that will address the inequality gaps between men and women, we are going nowhere as a nation. God believed that women have a role to play. And so in Genesis 1:27, he created male and female and blessed them and said that we should take dominion over the land. And for me, I don't see myself as a woman. I see myself in the image of God. And therefore, anything that I want to do, I know that because God created me in his image, created you in his image, you are bound to succeed. You are not bound to fail. So, I don't get it when people say that women cannot even be in leadership and get married. Even those days, Deborah stayed married.
The summit, under the theme Equality for Women is Progress for All through Total Inclusion, is an initiative by the Gender, Children and Social Protection Ministry, which it intends to institutionalize. For Joy News, Gifty and Dopia, Banquet Hall, Accra.
So as you can see, they're very well attended, very vibrant summit, and plenty equality. But we haven't got into the equality bit. Mercy, what informed this summit?
Thank you very much. Over the years, the country has marked International Women's Day in various forms, and we have to admit that it has usually been led by civil society. And so the gender machinery, or the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection, which is now mandated to ensure gender equality, saw it as very key, critical, to lead the process. And that is why we're saying that is the first Ghana Women's Summit that has been, as it were, celebrated by government, because we needed to bring the women from across board, everywhere, to come together to celebrate our achievements, re-strategize, and also acknowledge that yes, we have challenges, but how do we move forward? How do we move on to achieve this gender equality? So that is what informed the summit.
Are you looking to continue it, because it looks like a big success? I mean, you're going to take it to different regions as year on year, or?
Certainly, we're going to be continuing, but as to where we're going to take it to, we haven't decided. But it's certainly going to be something different every time. This time it was a summit. Watch out for the next thing. You never know.
I see. Now, Then, before I even get to the equality business, you see, now it's your ministry is now, and I never get it right. Gender, children, and social protection.
Yeah.
I mean, should it be like have a ministry of women, ministry of children, so that it is clearly defined, and then if you're paying attention to these segments, you can, because when you mix them like that, you don't know. I mean, is it too much for one ministry, or?
Oh, there's no doubt that that's a lot on a plate. I mean, there's so much work in that. And I mean, over the years, there has been call for a specific focus, even not only on gender, but actually on women, and there's specific focus on children, and then social protection, elderly and all needs a special attention. There has been that call. So now as a ministry, I mean, one ministry taking care of all these various groups, it's evident that there's so much work needs to be done. We have been running around since, I mean, since some of us came on board, and you really don't see an end to it, because we're here today. You see the room packed also because there are representatives from all the different groups. Even though it's a Women's Day, we belong to a certain broad group, so we're having a lot of young people present. You saw secondary school persons. We're having persons with disability present, the elderly. We had a 95-year-old woman who is a midwife who still practices the profession. She managed to climb up the banquet hall staircase and sat in our midst and shared her experience and gave her support. I mean, as some of us spoke to her one-on-one. So it's a very broad area to work in. I spoke to
her, and she's agreed to come on Personality Profile.
You should have
I want to hear her story.
Her story is inspiring.
Another 5 years and she's a century-old.
I'm telling you, she still has, I mean, she's still working well. So it tells us also our attention to the elderly and the support we give them and the recognition of their work. We would have said, oh, she's too old, don't bother her. We sent an invitation, she honored it, and she was there on time. So, and she did have conversations with a lot of people, very encouraging and very inspiring. That was the essence of the day, actually. So we did achieve our aim. So back to your question, yes, it's broad, but so long as that is what we have now, we're trying to make the best that we can of it, and so we are marching on.
Messi, staying with the same issue, I mean, the urgency to lift women from, you know, wherever they are to, you know, a certain place, so that they impact it into the offspring, so that, you know, their generation will, it's very crucial. And if we mix it all up this way, and it's done by the state, through no fault of yours, maybe the state is not looking at it properly. Maybe they're thinking it's all good, let me put them all together. But it could have a negative effect where you don't pay enough attention to children or enough attention to women. You know, and these are 1-2 classes that you need.
Obviously, like Diana said, we have a lot on our plate. But that is because there are certain synergies that you cannot run away from. If you take women, if you take children, if you take men, there are certain synergies between men and women, that is gender and children, and then persons with disability and the vulnerable and social protection. And so as a result of these synergies between these various groups, it makes a lot of sense to have one machinery that looks at them and coordinates. So really, our role as a gender ministry, especially in terms of social protection, is a coordinating role, because we have several social protection interventions in the country, some being implemented by different ministries, education, agric, local government. And so what we are doing is coordinating. And if we are coordinating, what it means is, how well are these interventions meeting the target groups? You see, how well are these interventions meeting the target groups? So do we have a particular criteria, what we call a database, that is helping to see that these are the indicators, these are the that we are using to know who really needs that? And so it makes a lot of sense to have one machinery or ministry coordinating them. And then when you talk about women, children, the gender issues, they are cross-cutting. And so it is a lot on our plate, yes, but it makes a lot of sense, because then you would have effectiveness and you would have maximum productivity, ensuring that all these are. So the issues are not missing, actually, and that is why the ministry itself is going through a restructuring, because it used to be women and children, and now we're going through that restructuring to put out those pieces of structures that need to be established to ensure that these various sectors or aspects are seen to and they are functioning. So
then it comes down to cash. Now,
precisely.
And I mean resources. I mean, because now you need resources for women, children, gender issues, social
persons
protection.
with a disability, the aged.
So if education gets 1 cedi, you need 4 cedis.
Exactly.
You know, 4, because it's like 4 ministries all whacked in one. But is the state recognizing you as 4 ministries in one, or are they treating you as one ministry in terms of financial?
I think that it has started, because for 2014 we had our budget tripling, and I think it's also about making the case that this is what really is. This is the case, and so this is what has to be done, and that is what it's all about the deliverables, about what you have to do and the issues that have to be addressed. And that is why we are marshalling all our efforts and coming together to make sure that, listen, this is what we have to do to ensure inclusion as far as our development is concerned. So once we make the case, government is obliged, as government has already said, that it is obliged to support the gender ministry, because ultimately then it is the socio-economic development that we're talking about.
Then I want to stay with social protection. One thing that really bothers me or gets to me, and we are all quick to blame, oh, why doesn't she leave that horrible man and go? Oh, you know, why is he staying in this family? And the thing is, where does she go? You know, nobody's got refuge, nobody's going home. You know, she probably hasn't got any parents anywhere. Her only home is her marital home. And literally, that woman is trapped, and most people, you know, it leads to fatality. I mean, what social protection, I mean, what can we do to help? Because there's many of such women out there who, if there were a place for them to hide, they would have left home and go and seek hiding.
Are you talking about shelters for women who are in abusive relationships and all of that?
Yes.
Yeah, we as a ministry, we recognize the need, I mean, particularly after the passage of the domestic violence law that mandates that there should be shelters for women who suffer different forms, women and children who suffer different forms of abuses in their relationship. And so we have our shelters coming up. Currently, the one and only confidential shelter we have as a country is that is being run by the ACT Foundation. They have not closed their doors to the demands of the country, but there's this much they can do based on the cases that happen across the country, and cases come from all over to the ACT Foundation shelter. We have some homes also where children go when in need and all of that. When it comes to women, the struggle is a little rough. So the ministry is setting up 2 shelters. Actually, they would be functioning in a very short while. So then they'll respond to that kind of need. And other shelters will spring up across the country, hopefully. So that is a struggle. And you talked about resources. We cannot pretend that we have all the resources we have to work, because sincerely, we don't think of any one ministry that has all the resources they require. The little resources, as a ministry, you have to pull your thoughts together and collaborate with other institutions and bodies who have interest to be able to run. And so we do not have the resources fully, but we are trying to get things done as quickly as possible. So pretty soon we have the 2 shelters functioning. I'm still hesitant to talk about locations of the shelters because of issues. Yeah, I mean, we do have other kinds of, there are different kinds of shelters, but we feel safer with confidential shelters because of some of the backlash that comes with the woman leaving the man and going to a hideout and all of that. So we are trying hard that within a short while the shelters will be running, functioning the structures are there and everything, to how to get it rolled out is what we are working with now.
Mercy, let's still stay with social protection, and this is with children who are clearly, need to be in school, and during school hours are peddling shoelaces or, sachet water or chewing gum. You know that this kid should be in school, and I hear the school is free. I mean, all that child has to do is to have an adult walk them into a school and say, listen, he needs to be in school. But yet still, we drive by unconcerned, and there's quite a few of them. I mean, so does it fall under your ministry, or does it, how do we help these children?
As long as it is children, it falls under us, and we have to do something about it. But the truth is, some of these children have parents, and some of these parents, yes, are genuinely in need. There are others, if you go to DOVS, to the Domestic Violence Victim Support Unit, they will tell you that it's non-maintenance. Non-maintenance not because that parent is not capable of, but for so many reasons. Other times it is because I'm angry with the woman, or I'm angry with your mother. That is why this is happening. But yes, it falls under our it's our responsibility to make sure that these children are not on the street. But like my minister would say, now we don't have street children, we have street people, because they have been generations over there. And that is why it is very, very important that we get up our loins and then work at it. And we cannot pretend, like Dana said, these are real challenges that we have to deal with, and it comes back to funding. And so as we innovatively come up with issues, we are also calling on other corporate or institutions, because they are supporting and they are having interventions one way or the other. But since we have a machinery that is looking at social protection interventions, they can work at all those things that they are doing through us. Again, there are other social protection interventions that target these people, and that is why, again, it is necessary that we have one machinery that is coordinating, because if we have that particular targeting system that we are talking about, then it means that that intervention will reach those who need it. And that is why there is a need for us to have this ministry and then have this restructuring, so that the targeting system we are putting in place will actually address those who need it. But as a country, we need to rise up to that responsibility, especially parental responsibility. We cannot run away from it.
Dana, see, I know maybe it's a law that, and a compulsory that every child should be in school. But then you find them, they are sharing the same traffic lights with the police. I mean, the police pickup is there, and the child is also just there, and they are happily, coexisting by the traffic lights. When it's red, the guy goes to sell. When it's green, the policeman then comes to take charge. Says, okay, the car's to go. When it's red, then the guy, the kid takes over. Coexisting. I mean, could there be a law where the police would do something, tell the child to go home or something? I mean,
yeah, it should. That is what ought to happen. And most often we are quick to say, let's pass laws. And then the next time we are like, what's happening to enforcement? So some of the issues that we face as a country goes beyond one ministry or one sector. For example, we are talking about children on the street selling while they should be in school. People will be quick to say, what is the Ministry of Gender doing? But this has to work in collaboration with the Ministry of Education. That holds, that part that says that we are offering free education. We're giving somebody's local government and the rest are providing free food. That is an incentive to keep children in school because they don't think they will starve. And then there are other bodies that support in creating the awareness. Sometimes we think people know it. Sometimes we think people appreciate the value of education. We think that they're just being mean to themselves and to society. But I still don't think awareness and sensitization can be written off because we've done it for a little too long. Parents grow and new parents come on board. Challenges happen, people migrate and all of that. So back to the question of, I was having a conversation very similar, I think it was around the Nima area, that there was a situation that I noticed a particular police officer always witnessed and said nothing. And I asked, why do you preside, I used the word, over such a thing? And he was like, I've taken several actions and I'm happy, I'm tired. I'm here for traffic, let me sort my traffic issue and get down. There's frustrations within institutions until we come together to address why is the child on the street. We can't just assume that it's purely due to negligence, or it's purely due to juvenile delinquency, or it's purely due to poverty. It could be a bit of all. It could be that there are other things that are informing, probably health issues within the family or all of that. So until we get that integrated support system, where a child can easily be moved to a place where counseling is provided, assessment is done, it will be very difficult for the police to say, I'm arresting a parent or I'm sending a child here. So we're still working on our structures all together to give a holistic approach and response to problem. That, I think, is a little slow, and we should pick up our game on that.
I want to take a break, and then when I come back, now we'll look at the gender side of the ministry. Because anytime you say gender, the first thing that clicks is that, it means that the woman should have more rights than me. Then the men get alarmed. Stay tuned. Well, just before we went on the break, I was discussing that frightening word that literally frightens men in general. Gender. Somehow we always attribute gender to be that it means that a woman wants more rights, and then all our defense buttons come on. Diana, maybe you haven't marketed or explained that gender thing to, because men don't see themselves as, it's gender issues are, well, then it's women issues. You know, and so if, I don't know, you say, oh, gender crimes, well, it means then they are saying that we are beating them now. You know, see, so why is that? Why, you know, was it marketed to us wrongly, or? That
element could be there, but I think in the effort to engage on gender issues, as you break down, I know gender is basically about the relationship that exists, the social relationship that exists between men and women, and as you begin to digest and analyze the relationship and how it affects one group over the other, it so comes out that it becomes clear that women are more discriminated upon. So as you talk about gender issue and gender relationships and all of that, eventually the picture comes that some people are more disadvantaged than others. For example, if you're doing a gender discussion, you want to run an exercise, there's a very popular exercise called Mr. and Mrs. Imuru. And so you pick the life of a man and then you run it from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. and then you pick the life of a woman and run it from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. By the time we put the pictures up, we realize that women really have a struggling day, much more than men. But then that is an effort to establish the relationship that exists between men and women. By the time you are through with that, it's so clear that a man is bread. Man
is tired, but women don't know.
But if a woman is tired, a man they see well the woman they tired. So man no be cry. You know. So
my director is saying boys are bread.
Girls are bread. Now the girls are saying they are bread more than the boys are saying it. So by the time those pictures are reflected, you talk about education, gender and education, you realize that more girls lose out on education as they grow than boys, job opportunities. By the time you do the analysis of how men and women exist in society, you find that women are more disadvantaged than men. So those conversations have suggested that this is all about making women better than us, or taking the advantages we have from us. That is on the part of men. So eventually, and then by the time you are done with gender discussion, you're talking about women equality, gender equality, progress for women and all of that to kind of feed into a national development discourse. So I think part of it comes from there. And then the initial attempts at promoting gender equality also paid a lot of attention to women's progress and women's development. So then people also became uncomfortable. You say that, you know, we have all existed. Many people have said men and women have existed for a while and they're all fine. So what is all this about gender equality and all of that? But we're saying that it looks like for some people, and we don't think it is by any deliberate effort of men that women are disadvantaged. We think it's been over centuries of socialization and societal structures that men are at a better advantage than women. And so that advantage is sweet. It's nice, it's favorable. I like it. I like that my food is made for me. I don't know how it happened. By the end of the day, there's a beautiful bowl of fufu and soup, and somebody has to do the peeling, the pounding, and all of that. So all of a sudden, they're saying that, oh, all of you can cook it, eh? Me too, I'm going to pound fufu and make soup, or I'm not going to get that fufu bowl. Maybe they're not saying make it for somebody else, but they're saying that it's possible that all of you can do it. So the discomfort that comes with ceding off some of the privileges men have made this whole discussion look like gender is about just women. But at the end of the day, I'm saying that the disadvantaged group within the gender relationship is women. Let's not pretend. Let's say, yes, that is what it is, and how can we address it? But in a very respectful, progressive, and consistent manner. Yes, double standards is a risk.
Are you not trying to have your cake and eat it? I mean, you want the dowry, you want the white weddings, you want the washing machine, the cookers and everything.
No, but you see, just as Dinah said,
asking for too much.
No, we're talking about sharing the cake equally, sharing what we have so that it would benefit both parties, and that no one group will be so disadvantaged to the extent that we have to now spend to clear that disadvantage in terms of ill health, in terms of illiteracy.
So how come when it comes to the dowry, as for that, the gender issue never extends to the dowry?
No, but you know that there are certain cultures that the women pay the dowry. And if we go back into history, this payment of dowry thing is not as if you are buying off the person. There's some sense in it that you are paying this is a token. Is a token of what you, the man, has. You, the man, have. Is a token. And so it is modernity that has changed it. And then again, that aspect where, well, this daughter of mine is going away. I will not benefit from her again. And here again, we are looking at benefiting from that species, let me say, that species of a human being, just benefiting from her, and then so she's going away to be another person's property. That is what has brought about all these things. But really, when we're talking about gender equality, we're talking about that equal access to opportunities, to everything, such that we develop holistically, like she said. Because otherwise, as has happened over the years, we have high illiteracy for women, their health, their financial, and then it comes back to having to spend. So it's not so much as we are calling for too much. No, we're talking about the fact that these are resources available to us, and so we must share it equally.
Dinah, there are more female lawyers. You are beating us in mathematics. Now you are beating us in science. Now you are more in schools than us.
Business.
Very soon, you'll be watching football and drinking beer and got the remote control.
Some already have the remote control.
That's the end of us.
You see?
No, you keep sorry.
That's the end of us. You are not doing the end. And when I hear analysis like that, what I say is there are very few women who are in corporate world.
Exactly.
There are some women there, but there are not as many as the men are. And so if this small percentage, the women in parliament, how many are they? If this fraction
is scary.
This
fraction among causes
fraction.
In parliament, we have 275.
Look, what percentage
what
is that?
Percentage?
So, if that is all we have as a country, we should be very worried. But then interestingly, some people are even more concerned that this is getting out of hand. How can we make sure that this balance doesn't balance very well? I think it's important to recognize that, yes, people may not be too comfortable. People wonder where is this going to end. But if you look at other places where, the speed is equal, and you realize that not much harm has been done to their existence, their development is quite progressive, then I think it will calm us. And there's no risk. What would happen?
Interestingly, our men see these societies or these jurisdictions which have women and men, you know, almost having equal opportunities. They admire those communities or societies. They live there, they're comfortable there, they would wish to be there. But then when they think about the same situation or similar, not even the same, similar situation in their situation, then they are scared. Why? Because they, of course, it's natural to feel a bit uncomfortable because I have been used to enjoying life this way and watching over or presiding over somebody suffering. But that is what development is all about. How long are we going to have our women underdeveloped and then we having to spend to deal with all those problems
that just brings me to my next question, because we are talking about equality. But you see, they say the ant is the strongest animal in the world because it can lift 3 times its body weight. It's so stronger than the elephant, because the elephant can't lift 3 times its body weight. So when we say equality and the ant lifts its body weight and the elephant lifts its body weight, well, you say, well, the elephant lifted a ton and the ant lifted probably, you know, feather. But that's maybe, you know, that's equal. But to say that by all means the ant should lift the same weight as a bigger creature or something, that's the confusion.
No, that is not the situation. We're not saying, we are talking about equal access to available opportunities in terms of education, in terms of economic and financial independence, in terms of access to health, access to justice, access to land. These are the things we're talking about, and they are not strange because the Constitution. No, we don't. The Constitution
more than we use
because we have more problems than you do. Because we have more problems than you. But we're talking about that equal access. I mean, no woman should die giving birth. But do we have that access? Do we have that equal access where we can enjoy it? No. And so these are the things we're talking about.
Is it not because sometimes, you know, the women themselves don't want to go to this particular midwife for one reason or the other?
And also that is where also we say information plays a key role. And so when we talk, for example, you're looking at maternal health as an example. When we talk about access to health care, it includes access to information, the right and control over your health care and the choices you make. For some women, the decision to go for antenatal care is not because she doesn't know it's important to her health, but it's because a partner says, I'm not ready for you to go to the hospital. You can go only when you are in labor. But you know that safe delivery does not start at the day of labor. It starts just when you know you have conceived. So people's decision to use contraceptive and control their birth is decided by their partners. They cannot, and those are some of the equality we are asking for. You cannot use condoms or pills because your partner does not agree to it. And if you want a 3rd child or a 4th or a 5th, you must oblige, otherwise you face the consequence. And whatever consequence that is, it's only you people who should tell us.
Well, when you take a break and when you come, I mean, is it not true that, you know, as men we are hunters and women are gatherers, and therefore we need to go and hunt, bring it, and then they gather? Is that not how God created nature? Stay tuned. Well, just before one of the break, I was trying to find out if nature made men hunters and women gatherers, which I believe they did. And I always pose this question, that can you imagine Abraham waking up one morning and calling in Sarah and say, hello Sarah, can you grab the spear and go and catch us a bear because I need the fur for a coat? I mean, he would have gone down in biblical history as the most chauvinist man ever. So what Abraham then does is gets the spear, goes to catch this bear, brings it, and then Sarah does the fair so that they can live happily ever after. But now the Sarahs today want to grab this spear and go and catch this bear, and that's where the issue is.
Is that what it really is?
Yes. And so what? Abraham is not comfortable with Sarah helping him out to catching the bear.
Just, when I bring the bear, you just help me out when I bring the bear. That's all Abraham
That's
said.
what he wants.
That's
But Saratu says,
wants.
I would love to catch on with the adventure of catching the bear. Who is uncomfortable?
Well, that's where the whole gender issues come from, isn't it?
No, well, the whole gender issue is not displacing the men. Not at all. It is saying that don't take the decisions for them or for us. Let us be part of a process. Let us be part of a process. For example, and I always use this example, men do not go through menstruation, and so you can only hazard a guess about what menstruation is. I go through it. I know the pain, and so if you want to do anything to help me to alleviate my pain, ask me how I feel. Don't just sit down and decide for me. That's what this whole conversation is about. So it is making people part of a process. There's a story of people having a borehole for people in the village, and then they still do not use it. They will still walk that whole stretch of road to the riverside.
And then they brought the borehole in the middle of the town. And after a few weeks, they decided to go to the river because that's where they wanted to be.
Yes, because
and so my argument is, you girls are now thinking that, oh, we are women and this is what they want to do. But maybe they're happy being Sarah, just killing the bear. And
why do we decline that we're also fighting for ourselves? There's always the assumption that women who champion issues of women's rights, fight against domestic violence, call for gender equality, are doing that for other women, but not on behalf of themselves. There's an assumption that women who talk against domestic violence are saying that people have issues in their relationship. How about if they are actually calling for the end of violence in their relationship, in their parents' relationship, in their families? So when we women, sit around and say this, we think this is the way to go towards our development, there's a quick call to say they are pushing something from somewhere onto some other women, excluding those very representatives who may be talking on behalf of themselves and people who have given them the confidence and the support to get moving. Today we had a summit. We called for celebration of women. We called that this is time to again, let's come together and see what we've done, congratulate ourselves. You see the numbers that were there. It tells you that women are in support of this cause. If women were not in favor, a boycott was not going to be a struggle. But women were there exceedingly abundant, and we even had our male partners there to say we be. So there's so much evidence to show that this is a collective concern of women across the globe. It is not strange, but people want to tell us that we are imposing something on others when they didn't ask for it. And then there's also another assumption that women automatically by being women, you should know what is right and what is wrong. We kind of take out the socialization factor, the factor that tells you that as a woman you must be submissive, to the point that even when you don't like it, you think that is right. So for a very long time you condone it and protect it until you've had too much, until you begin to share with other women, until you begin to discuss and see what happens elsewhere. Then you realize that actually I don't like this and I don't want it to continue. It takes one person to move it to the next level.
Give Mercy the last word.
I think that women have done a lot. We have achieved a lot, but there is still a long way to go. And by what we had today, the summit, it's very indicative of the fact that women and men are in support of what is going on, and everybody is calling for this gender equality or equality for women through this total inclusion, because that is the only way we can have development for our country. And we're not turning back. We're moving on. We feel encouraged. We feel strengthened to move on because others are depending on us and we cannot fail them.
Well, folks, on that note, and I could not agree more, and I keep saying that any nation that's got a lot of educated women in there tends to be a successful nation. You can close your eyes and throw a dart on the globe, and wherever that dart lands, just look at the women in there. If they're highly educated, if they're well standing in status, you know that that nation is well. Because it is very, very rare, if any, would you find a little girl or little boy selling sachet water by the traffic light if the mother is a nurse, a teacher, headmistress, a banker. It doesn't happen. Automatically, they look after their wards. And so I say educate all women, and 70% of our nation's problems will be solved. My name is Nana Sakwa, and I want to say thank you very much to Dinah and Mercy.
Thank you, Nana.
Tomorrow we'll be back to do it all over again.